Well, I've never started anything early, but it's 7:29, and I got here at 6:30, so I'm doing so much better, rather than 10 minutes late everywhere I go. Well, welcome everyone. This is to our Saturday night sanctuary meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is David, and I'm an alcoholic. And this is a cell-free zone, so please silence your phone. No texting. If you have an emergency call, please take your call outside. Because this is a large meeting, we ask that you save just one seat for yourself, plus one other. Now that the meeting has started, feel free to take any unoccupied seat. If you have a vacant seat next to you, please raise your hand so those still standing may find a seat. All right. Thank you. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other so that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. I have stated that I am an alcoholic. Will others present please raise your hands? Wow, so many. Okay, so please hold your applause till afterwards, but are there, and not to embarrass you, but so we can get to know you better at the break, and after the meeting, will any newcomers within their first 60 days of sobriety please stand and give us your name and disease? Go for it.
Jamie, addict alcoholic.
Jamie. Daniel.
Haley, alcoholic.
Haley.
Blake, alcoholic.
Blake.
Brody, alcoholic.
Brody.
Jake, alcoholic.
Jake.
Dimitri, I'm an alcoholic.
Dimitri. Welcome, everyone. Okay. If there are any alcoholics visiting from outside the greater Los Angeles area, please stand and give us your name and disease and tell us where you're from.
Maurice, alcoholic, Houston, Texas.
Maurice from Houston.
Eric, alcoholic, Hawaii.
Eric from Hawaii. Anyone else? Well, I guess the South Bay might be out of the greater LA area, huh? And are there any Al-Anon members with us tonight?
Yeah.
Welcome. Experience has shown that the AA program will work for any alcoholic who is sincere in his or her desire to stop drinking. The program for recovery is defined in our Chapter 5 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it is titled How It Works. And if I knew I would be leading this meeting, I wouldn't have drank 2 cups of coffee beforehand. But tonight I've asked Danny to read a portion of Chapter 5.
Yeah. Danny.
Danny, alcoholic. Chapter 5, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. A little nervous. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter 2, the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Thank you, Danny. Let's see. So the format of tonight's meeting is a 10-minute speaker and our secretary's announcement, and then a coffee and snack break after coffee and snack break, and then our main speaker. And our first speaker tonight, with great pleasure, I introduce Joe from Torrance.
I'm Joe. I'm an alcoholic. It's an honor to be here. I want to thank Jeanne for asking me. Jeanne's one of my favorite people in the program, and it's a privilege to open up for her. And you're in for a good treat tonight. I've been coming to this meeting. My sobriety date is August 1983. I've been coming to this meeting since the 80s. Not always consistently, but pretty consistently. And I've met every kind of person in this program you could meet. Superstar athletes, rock stars, house painters, plumbers, housewives, movie stars, everybody. We all suffer from the same affliction, which is alcoholism, which is what I suffer from. I have an allergy of the body and an obsession of the mind. When I take a drink, I can't stop drinking. As soon as I pick up the first one, I'm not in control over what happens. We just got done reading the steps. I'm powerless over alcohol, and my life is completely unmanageable. And I never heard anybody talk about that. When I grew up, there was nobody going to treatment. I never knew anybody in the neighborhood going to Alcoholics Anonymous. Nobody stood on the corner and said, "Hey, Holmes, let's go down and find a new spiritual way to live." You know, it wasn't like that. I grew up in a lowrider neighborhood, and a lot of guys, it was in the 60s, guys were taking Reds and drinking Spinata, and, you know, that was the people that I followed. And, you know, I took my first drink at 13, And I can remember standing on the corner chugging that cold Colt 45, and all I wanted to do was get it done so I could get more. And I made my friend drink as fast as I was so he wouldn't slow me down and we could go get some more. And that was the way I continued to drink. I wasn't born an alcoholic. My parents weren't alcoholics. My father was an artist. My mother was she was an educated woman, and I wasn't beaten. I wasn't abused. I didn't experience the effects of alcoholism in my home when I was a kid. At one point, my father got sick and died, and our whole life was turned upside down. It didn't make me an alcoholic, but what I didn't have was I didn't have any coping skills, you know. And I became a runner and a hider and a liar and a cheater and a thief, and I continued on that way until I was 26 years old. And I wound up overdosing several times and wound up in a treatment program. And that was where I was first introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I spoke a while ago, and I didn't really get to finish like what it's like now. You know, I told all the other stuff, but I ran out of time. But you know, I got a sponsor. I worked the steps. I understood powerlessness. I sat right in the room and read them on the thing and decided which ones I was going to work and checked them off. I figured I could do this one and that one and maybe make a couple tactical apologies and everything will be okay. But that wasn't the way it worked out. You know, my life was unmanageable. In step 2, it was about trust. It was about my higher power. If I didn't have faith in a higher power, I didn't feel that I could work the rest of the steps. You know, it was about trust and surrender. You know, how can I take step 3 and turn my will and my life over to the care of a higher power, my understanding, if I don't have any trust, if I don't think this is going to get better? If I didn't think it was going to get better, why am I wasting my time here? I might as well just go out and finish the job. And I got a sponsor and went on to work the steps, did a 4-step and a 5th step, and you know, went on to work on my character defects in 6 and 7. But it wasn't like I asked God to humbly remove these steps on a Tuesday and my life was completely changed for the rest of my life. You know, it's a daily reprieve. They talk about a day at a time, and that's how I have to work the program. So, you know, in steps 10, 11, and 12, you know, I need to keep my house clean. I need to stay in conscious contact with my higher power. I need to ask God to get me through another day in the mornings and be grateful for that in the evening. You know, today I'm grateful for the life that I have. The message that I have in 10 minutes is that there's hope here, that what I found in Alcoholics Anonymous was hope. I came in a hope to die drunk, a blackout drunk, a dope fiend. I burned everybody I knew. I'd been to jail. I've been to institutions. I've been close to death several times. You know, I've been shot at, stabbed with a screwdriver. I've been on fire, been in car wrecks. You know, I paid my dues out there. And if I want that stuff, I can go back and have it. Thank you. But, you know, I'm grateful I don't have to do that. I've lived anything that I thought I wanted to do, I've experienced in Alcoholics Anonymous. It may not be as grandiose as I thought, you know, but it's all come true. And it's from working the people, getting involved. I used to be, when I first came to AA, I was afraid of people. I would go to meetings like this and then just walk around and not talk to anybody. And I needed to make a connection with you. And it was terrifying at first, you know. And then once I got in, I found that this is where it's at. You know, it was about having commitments. I got my first commitment here. I came here and I saw a guy, he was the secretary, a guy I had a lot of respect for. And then after his time was up, he was over setting up cookies. And I go, wow, that guy got demoted, you know. But what I found out, he was happier setting up cookies than he was as a secretary. And I watched him. So I got a cookie commitment, you know, and I was out there every week lining up my little Oreos and stuff. And my friends would come in and break my chops and call me Cookie Man and stuff, you know. But that was, and what that did was it let me be part of the meeting. You know, it became my meeting then. I was involved. I wasn't a spectator. You know, even though I worked the steps, I didn't feel all the way connected with you until I got into the program, to AA, and having commitments. And, you know, I was talking to my good friend Kelly, and she was talking about going to a PhD program. And I've seen people come from the gutter and move on to go back to school little by little, year by year by year, and you can be whatever you want to be here, you know. And I've seen that come true, and it's come true in my life. And, you know, I got a text from Barbara earlier this week, and she said this is the 38th year that this meeting's been here. And it's a privilege to stand here and be part of it, you know. And I could say that with honesty today, you know. And I've met some great people here. What was going on in my life in the most recent years, my mother got real sick, and I had to, you know, I had to go take care of her for her final time. And what I met with was a lot of love from the program of AA. People would give us food, you know, reach out, and just give me that love and stuff that I never had when I was using, you know, and it really meant a lot. And it was for real, you know. And when somebody brings you some food, because we're a proud people, you know, my mom never took food from anybody. When my dad died, she had 3 jobs, you know. She had 3 jobs, and I was a drunk, you know, and I needed to repay her that. You know, I needed to even the score with my mom, whether I ever could or not, but in my heart, that's what I needed to do. You know, I gave up my apartment and this and that and the other things, and that was like meaningless stuff. But it was more valuable to be there to help her through, take her to all those appointments and stuff. And, you know, and then when she passed, you know, I got messages of condolences from people that I looked up to in this meeting, you know. It wasn't fake, it was sincere, it was real, you know. I got calls from people, and it meant a lot, you know. And that's what I've experienced. To me, that's one of the most important things was finding that love, finding that hope, being part of, being connected to people that suffer from the same affliction that I can. There is hope. You don't have to die an alcoholic. Just because I have a little time doesn't mean I'm immune to relapse. You know, it's a day at a time. I could go wake up tomorrow and use. But if I work a program, if I start my day, you know, with a conscious contact with a higher power, like it says in the book, and live my life by the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous and help another alcoholic who's still suffering, then I have a chance to stay clean myself. By me helping you, it helps me stay clean another day. And that's about all I got. Thank you.
And as we reopen the meeting, would you all please join me in the serenity prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you so much. Now our main speaker will share her experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming, it says here, Jeanne from Venus.
Hi, my name is Jeanne. I'm an alcoholic. Where's my friend Joe? Oh, hi, Joe. I'm going to do what I do in AA. I'm going to ask God to come in and speak the words He'd have me speak tonight. And if you take that moment with me and have God open your ears so that you hear whatever it is you need to hear tonight, if you take that moment with me, please. Thank you. Calmed me right down. I want to say hi to the Zoomers and to the Roomers, and I hope that I give the best talk I ever gave in my life tonight for some special people in here. for all of you, really, but I hope I give the best talk. I hope you get something from what I said to keep you sober, till after midnight tonight at least. I was born in Detroit, and I want to thank Kelly for asking me at the last minute, I might add. Somebody canceled, so it's my turn. I want to thank Joe so much. Was that the best 10-minute you ever heard in your life? I could go home now. We all could go home. We've had a good meeting with that 10-minute speaker. I love that guy, Joe the painter. And when you hear my story, you'll know what that means to me. And then he's Joe the guitar player as well. And I have a history about that kind of thing, which you'll find out about. He knows, of course, because I give him that eye. You know that eye. I love you guys so much. If I don't say another word tonight, this is my home group, I love this is my Saturday night meeting. I speak other places and I'm gone sometimes, but in my heart, this is my Saturday night meeting, and I've been coming here for 36 years. I'm 37 years sober, 35 years squeaky clean and sober, because I took a little hit off of an outside issue. So I set my sobriety date back because I have to be squeaky clean. That's who I am. If I take a little chip, a little dip, a little toot, a little snort, a little shot, if I take anything, back a truck up because I'm going to be drinking again. And alcohol is my drug of choice. I would only do a little toot so that I could stay up with you all night. We'll play cards or something. You know what I mean? That's who I am. Okay, born in Detroit, Michigan, 1938. That's rigorous honesty, yeah. And they talk about that vigorous honesty shit in the big book. You guys got a big book. You got a sponsor. You're not going to hear a lot of big book from me, but believe me, I've done the steps. I've done the work. Last night when I spoke for Julie, where are you, Julie? Julie, thank you for last night, too. I spoke at my Friday night meeting, the other hardest meeting it is for me to speak at, because that's my home Friday night meeting that I've been going to for 35 years. I'm getting nervous. What's that about? Anyway. I'm in Detroit yet, right? Yeah. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, 1938. I better stick to the script. But last night I said something, and I have to clarify it. Last night I said something like, the little bit of work that I did here in AA, it's a little bit of work every day for 37 years. It's only a little bit of work, but that little bit of work is what made the connection with me to you. I had so much guilt and shame, which is like a barricade between us. My guilt and shame protects me from getting close to you, from really knowing you, for allowing you to know me. And another thing I couldn't trust because I had so much guilt and shame for the shit that I did, that I couldn't trust you because if I did that bad, and I think I'm pretty bad, you might be worse, you know what I mean? So I couldn't trust anybody. I better start. What's wrong with me today? Somebody else is up here. It isn't me. I was born in Detroit. Okay, I'll start for real. Born in Detroit, Michigan. I was orphaned that's it. I don't want to be an orphan. I was orphaned very early. My mom and dad were separated in their own home. My dad was getting called into the service because we're going into war with Hitler. And they were already kind of divorced in their own home, okay? But they couldn't afford it, so when he got sent away, it was like freedom for my mom. I had an older brother and sister, and he dropped us off at my grandmother's house. And my mom went to the federal building downtown Detroit to work to supplement the income for my grandmother's home and her. And one day, after about a year with my grandmother, I was about a year and a half by this time, or 2 years old. I was the youngest. Do we have water? Yeah, that's okay. Oh, just a little glass, Kelly, thank you. My grandmother. Oh, my mom came home one day after about a year and a half of being, working, and we had race riots in Detroit in that year, and they had to ship a guy or several detectives from other parts of the state or other states to quell those race riots because all the men in Detroit were either working in factories and couldn't do it or whatever reason. I don't know history, you know. Anyway, so she decided she's going to leave with this guy. I'm going to have a drink, okay? That'll calm me down. Damn, you guys got some good water here in Manhattan Beach. I don't want to buy a case of it and check into a cheap motel, but it's good water. Back to being an orphan. Well, I'm not an orphan yet. Okay. So now my mother comes home one day and she says to my grandmother, I'm taking the children, I'm going to leave with this guy. And my grandmother said, you can go live a life of sin, but she said, you're not taking these 3 beautiful Irish Catholic babies with you, French Irish Catholic babies with you. She said, you get your head screwed on straight, you can come back and get your children. To this day, I've never laid eyes on my mother. Shortly after that, my grandmother had a massive heart attack and died, leaving us kids orphaned. Now I'm an orphan, legally. And the state stepped in because there were things going on in that home after my grandmother died. They couldn't find my mother. My father's at war. And they put us in St. Vincent de Paul. I was Catholic. And so St. Vincent de Paul was in an orphanage for quite a few months, I guess, and because they couldn't afford to keep us in the orphanage, they started fostering us out. And I'd like to tell you the people that took us in because they wanted to have a beautiful little family, but the truth of the matter is they took us in because they needed money, egg money. They were all farm workers, all farm women. Their husbands were away in the service. And they took us kids because they got $8 a week for each one of us. So if they had 3 kids, they would get 3 kids their kid size. They'd send to St. Vincent de Paul for the clothes that we should have gotten new, and it was given to their kids. And then I'd get those kids hand-me-downs. So I kind of hated Catholicism. I kind of hated these Catholic people that were doing this. You know, and I was a pretty sharp little kid, and I kind of cloaked myself in the armor of the adult. I kind of built that wall around me. My brother was taken first. He got out of the orphanage first before my sister and I. And so when my sister and I were fostered out, we were fostered together, usually the 2 of us. And she was like my little mother because she was like a year and a half older than me, and she kind of took care of me. But I was a bad little girl. And so I would pull away from her, and I kind of remember pulling away from her, and she was always just trying to make me mine so we wouldn't both get in trouble, you know. And so one day we're leaving the house. This is about the 4th house we've moved to by this time. And we're sitting on these boxes, and I like to move. I don't like these people that I live with most of the time, you know. So when they tell me we're moving, I get happy because I'm reading Little Orphan Annie in the comic strips, you know. And Little Orphan Annie has her own dog, Sandy, and she moves in with Big Daddy Warbucks. You guys don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? I'm so old. Anyway, it was a comic strip about a little orphan with red curly hair. And so I'm thinking, this time we're going to go to Big Daddy Warbucks' house, you know, live in a mansion. And so I look at my sister, we're sitting on these boxes with our stuff in it, and the people we're living with are moving. And so I'm kicking the side of my box, and I can hear that in my mind when I tell you about it. And I look at my sister, and she's got this long face, and I'm thinking, what's wrong? Why is she mad? You know, and so I see the social worker come down the road, you know, dust coming behind her. She pulls into the driveway. She says a few words to the people that live in this house. And we stay on our box, and they called us to put the boxes in, and they put the boxes in the car. And I get in the car, and they shut the door. And my sister was still on the porch. And so I went into a rage, I guess. My sister told me we had a little Orphans Anonymous meeting when I met my sister at 40 years later. I was 44 years old when I met my sister. And she said, the thing that saved me and my sanity was that your red face went to every window as that car backed away and turned, screaming, sputtering, you know, I was in that car. And she said, That saved my sanity because I knew I was the only one that could make you mind and that they were going to bring you back to me. Is that the saddest thing you ever heard? It's sad for me, not for my part in it, but for her part in it. And then she told me when we had this little Orphans Anonymous meeting, she told me she stayed with that house. The people who lived in that house moved out. The new people moved into the house, and she came with the house like a piece of furniture. My sister stayed in that place. And then my sister ended up living with somebody I found out, with lots of talk. My sister lived with a lady who she was a nurse. She had 2 children, about 9 and 10, and my sister was like 12 years old, and she lived with her whole life. And that woman gave my sister, wasn't like a lovey mother, but it was, she made sure my sister got a good education and that kind of stuff. My sister had a kind of different life than I did. So anyway, I cloaked myself in the armor of the adult. I quit investing in you because I know I'm not going to be here very long with you, And so I know I'm going to be moving quick, so we better fall in love. We better have a lot of fun. We better climb every tree. We better, steal everything we can get our hands on. We better have some fun because I know I'm not going to be here very long. And that's how I kind of protected myself. I kind of protected myself and stayed sane. And like I say, I kind of closed you off. You didn't matter to me anymore. I was in so many different homes. I finally learned how to behave a little bit, and I stayed in the last 2 homes that I was in like 3 years at a time. And I stayed with this one German lady who had raised 3 separate people from 3 separate families from St. Vincent de Paul, and I was part of her 3rd family. And when the social worker took me to their house, I told this story last night, that she had to rock like 3 times to get out of the chair. That's how heavy she was. And my sponsor made me look at this. That's why I can tell you about it. She said, so the lady came to the door, and my social worker introduced me and said, "This is Dolores. Dolores, Jeanne asked you. She's your new daughter." And the lady looked down at me. She had her arm around me already, which made me fall in love. She's heavy set and had nice weather. It was middle of winter and cold and 7 o'clock at night, dark in Michigan. And she took my face in her hand, and she looked down into my face, and she said, "Dolores." She said, "I already have a girl named Dolores." She had me like this, and she was hugging me, and she said, "Would it be okay if we called you by your middle name? What's your middle name?" And I said, "My middle name is Jeanne." And she said, "Would it be okay if I called you Jeanne?" And I said, "Yeah, that'll be okay." And my sponsor said, "Jeanne, the only thing you had was that brown paper bag with your clothes in it and your name. And they took your name. Didn't that make you angry?" I said, "She could have called me a shithead. I wouldn't have cared." With that warm hug she was giving me. And that lady turned out to be one of the biggest teachers in my life. She taught me how to be a good neighbor. Something happened to you, man, we had a casserole over to your house. If your mother died, we baked something special for you. A salesman came to the door. He went home with peaches or apples, whatever was in season. That was the kind of lady she was. She was the most fabulous cook. She was from Germany, her and her husband. Grandpa slept upstairs someplace. We never saw him. He had but he was always at the farm, always working. He had hands the size of hams, and he never had to say a word to me. Like if I was taking too much butter off the butter plate, I'd have to look at him to see how deep I could get into the butter, and he'd give me a look like, that was enough, Never said a word to me, but he would give me a look. I'd know I better behave because I don't want no spanking with those big hands. And so I grew up there a little bit, and I went to one more home after that. My girlfriend, I got to speed up. My girlfriend's uncle signed me to get out of St. Vincent de Paul so that I could be her lower companion. Hitchhiked to Memphis with her, Memphis, Michigan. I wish it was Memphis, Tennessee. Elvis was still alive then. But we'd hitchhike to Memphis and just have a blast and dance and go to dances, roller skating, all that kind of stuff. And she signed me out of St. Vincent de Paul, and I had to get a job. I was 15 and a half. I got a job at Coney Island Hot Dog, and a hymn came in. Yeah, one of those hymns. Kelly, you know those hymns. And he came in and he gave me that look. Julie knows that look. And so I go, oh my God, he likes me. And my sponsor made me write about this. She said, Jeannie, you knew this guy 3 weeks and you married him. She said, were you in love? And I said, I couldn't remember. It had been a long time since I'd been married to that guy, and a lot had happened in between. And I thought, God, did I ever love him? She said, well, I want you to go home and write about it, because that's what sponsors do. So I went home and I wrote, he was tall, dark, and handsome. Well, he was only dark and handsome, but a 2 out of 3 aren't bad. And he said he came from Ohio. Ohio, how exotic is that? I'm going to travel. And he told me that he worked at the post office. The post office, oh my God. People that worked at the post office, their kids came to school with better clothes. They had new shoes every semester. They had that white picket fence in their front of their house. They had that warm glow coming from their living room. Those were the people that worked at the post office, because it was a career. It's not just a job, you know. So when he asked me to marry him, I said yes. Oh, and another thing. He didn't have any anger issues. Now, I knew him 3 weeks, right? And my sponsor reminded me of that when I told her this. She said, well, how did you know he didn't have any anger issues? And I said, well, I'd read this romantic magazine, you know, the kind I used to have to hide under the bed, under the mattress, and it talked about a Caesar salad. And in that Caesar salad, they put anchovies. Well, I'm from Michigan. I don't know what an anchovy. I never heard of the word anchovy. And so I thought anchovies must be some kind of rare vegetable. And I wanted some. You know, I had the ism already. I want something like now when I think I need it. And so he takes me to the drive-in one night, and he goes, he stops at a liquor store because it's cheaper, and he's kind of frugal. And he said, we'll go to the liquor store and get some snacks for the drive-in. So he's buying your Slim Jims, potato chips, popcorn, the kind of crap we eat, you know. And I'm finding these anchovies. I see 2 cans of anchovies, and they're not just regular anchovies. They're from Portugal. Oh, my God, Portuguese anchovies. This must be... That's why I don't know about it in Michigan. You know, they come from Portugal. So he comes over, he sees this big smile on my face, and he goes, well, what do you got? And I said, well, they're anchovies. And he said, well, what's an anchovy? I said, I'm not sure. I think it's like some kind of rare vegetable. And he said, well, how much are they? And I said, well, they're 10 cents a can. And he said, get 2. There's my man, anchovies and a backup for anchovies. That's my guy. And so now he takes me to the drive-in. We get to the on the way, I already have the ism. I'm not drinking yet. But I've had a few 7 and 7s at weddings and that kind of stuff. But I don't, you know, I'm not a drinker. Don't have money to drink. And so he said, I couldn't get that can open. You know, those little tiny anchovies that want to stay in that can. And so he said, reach in the glove compartment there, honey. I'll get a tool and I'll open them. And he's driving his little Plymouth, and he tries to open it as he's driving. And the sun was coming in, and it kind of shined on it, and they looked like they were moving because of the glare. And he threw those over across to me, and he sprayed the whole place with anchovy juice. But did that bother him? He hugged me and kissed me all night long, even though I smelled like a dead fish. I knew he really loved me, and I wasn't sure I loved him, but if you don't get mad at anchovies, you're going to be my guy, you know. And if you buy me 2, you got it. You're already in. So he takes me across the state line. My girlfriend's uncle signed for me to go across to Angola, Indiana. We get married in Angola, Indiana, and he comes home about 15 days after we're married, and he comes in and I'm cooking, because it's the 50s, and I got the little white apron on, and I'm in the kitchen, and I got beans on the back. I'm frying potatoes in this big thing, and I'm baking Spam. He loves Spam, and he likes it crispy. So I'm baking it, putting little cloves in it so it looks good, too. You know, I'm gourmet. This German lady taught me a lot. She didn't taught me about Spam. He taught me about Spam. And so I'm baking this Spam, and it's winter, and the steam is on the windows. I don't know, you never have that in California, but and it's steamy in the house, and he comes in all fresh and clean, and he goes, guess what? And you know me, I love surprises. I go, what? He said, the job at the post office is finished. I went, finished? What about that wind, rain, sleet, and snow shit? Finished? You can't be finished. He had failed to tell me he was painting the post office, Joe. And we're going back to Ohio, which I found out was not very exotic. Him and his crew were done painting the post office and we're going back to Ohio. So we go back to Ohio. He can't get a job in Ohio. He re-enlists in the 82nd Airborne. And we go down to Fayetteville, North Carolina. I have my 3 baby boys. First baby boy born December 27th, 1957. The only thing I ever wanted my whole life was to have a family that I never had, to give those kids the shit that I never got, to be the mother that I never had. And my first baby born in 1957 in Fayetteville, my second baby born in Heidelberg, Germany in 58, 1 year, 1 day apart, December 28th, 1958, February 28th of 1960, I had my third baby. His birthday's coming up. He's going to be 16 this year. Every 4 years he has a birthday. He'll be 65, something like that. Anyway, he was born in 1960. By this time, we're coming back to the United States. By this time, I find out that my husband's been cheating on me. I had no conception of the word cheating. I thought once you married him, they were like nailed to the ground. You know, I just never, I had no idea that something like that could happen. One of the guys in his company, when we went to a company picnic, he saw me pregnant with my last baby, 2 little boys I'm trying to herd around like cats, and he happened to be from Detroit, where I'm from, and he sat down and he told me the truth about what my husband was doing. I didn't say a word to my husband about it, because that's a conniver I am. If you hurt me down here, I go up here to my head and I start plotting and planning, and I plot and plan. It's usually murder and mayhem, but I couldn't really murder the father of my kids, so I called his company commander, and I told him what the situation was, and he wanted to know who told me, and I wouldn't tell because I thought my husband might murder that guy, and I kind of liked that guy, for being honest. And so, you know, it ended up, that was the end. From then on, I hated him, and he hated me because I got him in trouble without even discussing it with him. But he had a woman that this guy told me about, and I knew her name, I knew where she lived, I knew everything, and I gave that all to his company commander, which you're not supposed to do that in the Army. So when we come back home, he dropped me off where my girlfriend's uncle had built 3 houses. I look back at that time as the best time of my life. I've got those 3 baby boys that I really desired, the only thing I ever wanted. I don't have to worry about him saving wear and tear on me. And I don't have to worry about him. He's gone off to his new tour of duty. I got that allotment check coming in every month. And, you know, I'm living like a teenager. You know, I'm happy. And one day I go out there about a year later to get that allotment check, and nothing there. And so 3 months I literally watched my children starve. Finally, I got in touch with the Red Cross. I remembered I was Catholic all of a sudden. I got in touch with the Catholic priest, Father Farrell, who had been my priest when I went to school there. And Father Farrell helped me with money just for us to stay alive. One day while I was living there was a knock on my door. 3 beautiful people looking like you guys over there. They looked like Jeanne and Laurel. And anyway, they had boxes in front of them. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're bill collectors, or they're trying to sell me something. You know us, even though I wasn't drinking, I had the ism. I'm peeking through the blinds instead of answering the door. But they insisted, and they knocked on that door. I finally opened the door, and I told them, move on. If you're trying to sell me something, I have no money here. Oh, we're not trying to sell you anything. We're from the next town over, Memphis, that I used to hitchhike to. We're from Memphis, and we heard there was a family in trouble here, and we brought you some things. And, you know, I'd like to tell you that I was so grateful, and I showed my gratitude, but the truth of the matter is that shame and guilt about not being a good mother, not being capable of taking care of my kids came over me like a wave, and I couldn't even look them in the eye. I was like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm starting to do to my children what I had to go through my whole life. My kids are going to be on the dole because I'm incapable of taking care of them. I don't have an education. I've only gone through the 11th grade. I never graduated. What am I going to do? And so those people kind of felt my, discomfort, and they sort of backed away and said, here, it's for you, no problem. Thank you. We're glad to be of service to you or help you. And so after they left, the kids and I brought that stuff in the house. We danced around it. We were happy as hell. They had Cracker Jacks. They had little toys as well as food. They had their first good meal in a while. And so we were thrilled with it. And 3 days later, there was another knock on the door. And I thought, oh, and I had that righteous indignation that they talk about in the big book. I thought, God, what do they think? We're some kind of gluttons here? They're bringing me more food, those church people. And so I opened the door to tell them that. Well, these people didn't wait for any invitation in my house. The man stepped right past me. The two women followed him. They went into my living room, and I stood in the middle of the room. He went into the kitchen. The two ladies started talking to me, and they were saying things like, we're from ADC, Aid to Dependent Children, which was a kind of a law thing, their legal thing. They were there to take my children because they'd heard that I was incapable of taking care of them, that we were starving. And they said things to me, I think, because I'm not sure what they said, because once I heard the word foster home, we'll put your children in foster home. Once I heard the word foster home, my head swelled up. I couldn't hear what they were saying. My ears were ringing, but I saw their mouths moving, and they were saying things like, we'll get you an education. You're incapable of taking care of your children. You're incapable of getting a job, which is going to pay you enough to pay a babysitter and care for your children. I mean, they went on and on. Finally, this guy comes out of the kitchen. He said, we can't take her children today. And this lady said, well, why not? And he said, her cupboards are filled with food. God had done for me what I couldn't do for myself way back then. I finally got in touch with that husband, Father Farrell, got in touch with that husband, and we found out that he got an early discharge from the service. They called it a hardship discharge. He wanted to open a bar and restaurant, which he did in Kansas City, Missouri. Anybody here from Kansas City? It was called the Firehouse. It became very popular, but at that point in his life, he wasn't making the kind of money he thought he'd make at it. And so he came, I called, and I finally got a number for him, and I called him, and I said, you better come and get your kids. If you don't, they're going to come and take them. When this food is gone, they're going to come and take them. And so he came across country, and I'd like to tell you that, he asked me to go with him, and I refused. I looked at him, and I thought, I couldn't stand him. And I thought, I went across country with him once. I'll never do that again. I'll get a job. I'll go back to school. I'll get a job. Or I'll find another him, this time with money, and I'll go get my kids. I wasn't going to go with him. Because he said things like, you can get an apartment or a room in a house near Carla and I, Carla from Germany. I went, no, I ain't doing that. And so he takes my kids. I wave goodbye to my kids. I cry for 2 days. I'm working with my girlfriend's uncle at a bar called the Colony Bar. The Satellite Lounge in Port Huron, Michigan, right next to that post office he had painted. And I'm drinking now. I am drinking with anybody and everybody. And you better distract me because I don't have my kids with me now. You better buy me that best purse. You better take me to that best restaurant. We better have steak at every meal. I ain't doing no spam no more. That was my attitude. Me, 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 me. And I'm working, and the guy who owns the bar down the street, the Colony Bar, comes in one day, George Joseph, and he says, Jeanne, I better back up a little bit. So I'm drinking, I'm going to see those kids back and forth 3 years now. Every 4 or 5 weeks, I have enough money to get on that Greyhound bus. Every time I get on that Greyhound bus, I got to get a bigger bottle of something to get me there. I have to take some whites so that I can work 2 shifts, clean my house from top to bottom, get my clothes all ready, and go see those kids, and try to take a couple little gifts to my kids. And so I'm doing this, and like I say, I'm drinking, using, and wearing myself out, really. I'm like on a treadmill. And one day I get on that Greyhound bus, and I go to Missouri. We're going to go to Missouri. And I sit right behind the bus driver because he knows the best place to get the biggest drink and the best cheeseburger. And so I'm sitting there, and here's where Joe comes in again. I'm sitting there, and I hear this guitar player in the back of that bus. And I turn around and I look. And there's this long blonde hair, hippie looking, no shirt on, no hair on his chest, young man looking at me. Tanya, you know that look. Anyway, I think to myself, I have no makeup on. I got the same dress that I've been, have on. And I'm thinking, I'll go in, I'll put my makeup on at this next stop. This guy won't have a chance. I go in, I start putting that makeup on. Now, I've had whites the night before, those little whites that the guys at the factory use so they can work double shifts. I go in there, I'm putting my makeup on, those long lashes. It was the Twiggy time, remember? Bright clothes and long lashes. And so I go in there, and now I come out to get on that bus. That bus is long gone. That bus is long gone. So what do? When you're at the bus station, you see this big thing that says lounge. It's always neon. I love neon. I love neon. From the time I was 4 years old, my first neon light I ever saw, I wanted to go where that neon was. And so I saw this thing blinking, lounge. Well, I'm in the bar business, right? So I go in, I put $5 on the bar because I know how to treat a bartender. And I say, bartender, I don't care what happens. Make sure I get on that next bus. 3 buses later, a couple shifts later, I've gone through 2 bartenders, because once I sit at that bar, it's like I'm nailed there. I can't get up. I don't know what kept me there. Anyway, I know I got to go see my kids. I can't get off that bar stool, and I'm drinking, and I'm wasted. They finally poured me onto that 3rd bus. Well, my husband has been there. My ex-husband, Bert Lane, has been there to meet 2 buses already. And I come in on the 3rd bus a couple days later, whatever it was. By the time, and I can't sleep on that bus. I could have had a 4-hour nap, but I'm wired. I can't sleep. I'm looking for another guitar player on that bus. And so I fall out of the bus. I fall at his feet. How embarrassing. He talks out of the side of his mouth at me because he hates me so much he doesn't even look me straight in the face. I talk out of the side of my mouth, the other side, to talk to him because I don't want to look at him either. But guess what? This time he looked directly at me as he's picking me up off the ground. The same green dress that I drank in and peed in and whatever else I did in it. And so he looks at me straight in the face. And I saw his eyes for the first time in like 5 years. And I went, and he said, Jeannie, I don't know what you're doing with yourself, but every time you come and visit, there's a little less of you. What are you doing, girl? And he was hurt. I could see he cared. He didn't care for me. He cared about his kids, seeing his mother like their mother like that. He said, I can't bring your children to you looking like this. He said, I'll put you in a hotel unit. He said, I'll come and bring the kids tomorrow. And I guess he came the next day. I didn't have any clothes with me. I have just my makeup kit. We used to have a little makeup kit in those days. And I had my makeup kit with rollers and shit in it. And so I freshened up. Now it's the next day again. He's been there once, and now this is the second time he's been at the door. And so I hear his car pull up because there's like cinders outside, cinder blocks. I don't know, they're all crushed up. They make noise. I heard his car pull up. So when I opened the door, saw Carla in the front seat. She's got a baby. I didn't know that. She has a baby sitting in the front seat with her. My 3 boys are sitting in the back. And Bert has a briefcase, and he comes into this little motel unit, and there was a little round table. He said, Jeannie, sit down. I've got something I want to discuss with you. And he brings this briefcase. He never carries a briefcase. What the hell's he got? He's got business. Anyway, puts that briefcase up, and he takes this paperwork out, and he passes them over to me. He said, Jeannie, I don't know what's happening with you. He said, and I feel bad because of it. But he said, your kids, you see what we're doing with the kids. You can't take care of the kids like I can. You see, Carla does the best she can with them. She said, when you come, You disrupt our whole lives. You know, the kids stay with you for 3 days. They come back. They don't want Carla at all. You know, they call Carla the midget behind her back because I let them. And so he said, there was a seal of approval of some kind on this paperwork. I can't even tell you what the paperwork said, but he asked me to sign it. What I was really doing was signing my children over, and I knew that, and he explained it very well, but I couldn't really read it. And I'd like to tell you that I went to every court in the country and fought for my kids, but the truth of the matter is, there was a sense of relief. I'm not going to have to be the mother. I can't be the mother. I've been promising those kids every time I come. Next time Mommy comes, Mommy's going to take you with her. The next time I come, I'm going to have a car. I'm going to have a house. I'm going to have an apartment. I'm going to have a job, and we'll be together again the next time I come. But every time I get on that Greyhound bus, I know this isn't going to be the next time. That's who came to you. You know, I'd like to tell you I came to you right after that. I mourned my children on that bus ride home. For the next 10 years, I go back to work at my girlfriend's uncle's bar. The guy that owned the Colony Bar down the street comes in. He counts heads to see if we've got more people at our bar than he has at his bar. George Joseph, he goes to the church with me. I go to school. I had gone to school with his sons. They're bartenders by this time. And George says to me, Jeannie, you can't make any money and go get your kids in this town. He said, I heard they're opening a Playboy Club down in Detroit. He said, why don't you go down there and apply? I said, George, I don't have the money to get a Greyhound bus to go to Detroit. You know, it's all I can do is drink. I didn't tell him that. And he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Don't we love that language? I go, what? He said, I'm going to bring you the money in a plain brown envelope. You go to Detroit. If you get the job, you can pay me back. And if you don't get the job, it's a gift. Hey, I got nothing to lose. So I get on that Greyhound bus. I go down there. I become a Playboy bunny. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. There was hundreds of other girls from all over the country. Happened to the bartender that was a task force from Chicago working there. He's the one that opened the door for me, took me in. He took me directly into Claire Elias's office, the bunny mother's office. Those girls were from all over the country. They had hair piled up to here. They had lashes that were like awnings. I looked at one girl's ankle. She had stockings that had a seam, and then the seam went into a butterfly at the ankle. Lord, just shoot me now. I look like the country bumpkin, and here's these girls with real fur coats. You could smell the French perfume. They were from everywhere. They looked gorgeous. They were like models or something. But we walked right past them. Dickie Wong was the bartender's name. I know him now. Of course, I worked with him for 11 years. But he kind of flung me into Claire Elias's office, past all those 45 girls that were waiting to see her. And she gave me this thing to fill out. You know, it's the Playmate is on the front, and then on the back of that, they have all the statistics of who she is, where she went to school, and all that. Well, you guys have never seen the back of that Playmate, but this is what it was. And it asked me all kinds of questions like, what's your hobby? Hobby. I thought, what the hell's a hobby? Hobby. And then I went, oh, hobby. Oh, I love to play tennis. Never had a tennis racket in my hand. Love to ride horses. The only horses I'd ever been on were Bonnie and Queenie. You had to tie them up in the stall and feed them to just get on top of them. So anyway, I become a Playboy bunny. I fly up the stairs. I am thrilled with the fact that I'm going to be working with these kind of people. I have been rocketed to another dimension, you know. And the truth is, I was rocketed to another dimension. I stayed down there. I gave George Joseph lots of money back. And for the next 11 years, I worked, and it was the distraction I needed. It was exactly what I needed, a badge that I'm something bigger and better than I thought I was. And I got reaffirmed every day. Oh, Playboy Bunny, we were like idols, you know, at the time. This is in 1964. So now I'm drinking and using with the best of them, the rich and famous, and believe me, they're just like all of us. I had more fun with the rich and famous, I'm telling you. But I still had that wall around me. Nobody would ever get to know me. If you loved me, I couldn't look at you, because if you only knew, that's shame and guilt. If you looked at me and now I feel the love. Now I'm connected to you guys. I get it now. My heart is full with the love I feel. But then I couldn't accept it. I couldn't receive it, because my thought, if you knew who I was, you wouldn't be looking at me like that. So I couldn't connect to anybody. The rest of my life I lived alone. And yet I'm still never remarried. But I'm looking at that Joe, the guitar player and the painter. Oh, no, I'm 85. Oh. But anyway, so that's who came to you. I came to you. I'm working at the Marriott Hotel. I have a girl, my bartender happens to live next door to me. Her name is Jackie. Cheryl was Jackie's sponsor in AA. Jackie was my Eskimo that brought me to you right here to this meeting. Jackie lived next door to me. We lived at 1836 Strand in Hermosa Beach. We had a common wall. She knocked on that common wall. That told me Jay's going to her husband is going to one of those AA meetings. Jackie wants to go out drinking tonight. So I'd start putting my makeup on like I did for that blonde guitar player. And Jackie would come knock on my door, and we'd go to all the holes here in Hermosa and Redondo and Manhattan Beach, Mermaid, you name it. We drank everywhere there was a drinking spot. But guess what? She was a lightweight. She drank beer in those long neck bottles. I'm drinking bowls full of Southern Comfort on crushed ice, bowls full of vodka martinis. When she came to work one day and told me she was sober, why, Jackie, why? She goes, I'm living with an alcoholic. My sponsor tells me, I have all these anger issues because I can't drink the way I want to living with a sober member in AA. So she sent me to AA, and I'm 30 days sober. I went, shit. I had to go over and have a drink out of this margarita I had going on in the bus span at work just to talk to her about her going to AA. It was like spitting up a fur ball. Alcoholics Anonymous? And she goes, yeah, she said, and I wiped my mouth. I said, well, I'm not ready for that. She said, oh, don't come till you're ready. She said, they mean business there. They got shit hanging on the walls. They got bumper stickers. They got a book, a big book of their own. I said, big? How big is it? Will it fit my Volkswagen? Oh, my God, she's going to AA. I had to go have another drink out of that margarita. Don't come till you're ready. But so she said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Don't we love that language? I go, what? She said, I'm going to bring you the big book. She said, and if you read that, you'll have a chance. She says, it's working for me. And so she goes home the next day. She brings me that big book, and on there's a one white page with nothing written on it in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 3rd edition at that time. And she wrote sideways on it, Dear Jeanne, I understand that this program actually works. I'm praying that it'll be working for the two of us one day. Oh my fucking God. It pierced that armor that I have around me. It went, somebody cares about me more than I care about myself. Somebody cares about my well-being. I know I'm an alcoholic by this time. I've had 2 502s. I've been in Sybil Brand. Who knows how many other things I've done. I know now. But anyway, so I go, oh, Jackie, I can't believe it. So she brings me the book. I start reading the book just like you did. I start in the back of the book, reading your stories. When it touched my heart, I got to go across the street, the Prince of Wales. By now, I've drank myself out of Hermosa. I'm living in Playa del Rey, right across from the Prince of Wales. And so I run over to the Prince of Wales to have a cocktail because I can't read that story about you guys and your pain because it touches the pain that I can't live with. I got to get up here and plot and plan if I do that. And so I'm reading the book. One day I go to a shower with a bunch of girls, and I had decided 2 weeks before that I wasn't going to drink, and I was a periodic. You guys called me that. I didn't know that I was a periodic. And so when she had these little glasses for champagne, and she poured some. I said, no, I quit drinking, Jack. And she goes, Jeanne, you're the one that makes us go out and drink every freaking night. You're having a cocktail with me. I'm getting married. And so I went, okay. So I had a couple sips of that. But guess what? It set up the phenomena of craving. And I knew that. I didn't know the words for it, didn't have the language for it. You gave me that after. But I knew the minute I had that champagne, which I love champagne, that cheap champagne going, and I love cheap champagne, going down. I thought, oh my God, I got to get out of here. I went out, I got to go read that book. I got to read that chapter, how they do it. And I went home and I read chapter 5, how it works. But I started first before that, the doctor's opinion, and I identified it. I'm an alcoholic for sure, and I knew I was, my heart of hearts. But really reading somebody else's version of it told me that's who I was, and I identified. And then I read Bill's story where I got the hope that Joe talked about, the hope. The first time I'd ever had hope that I might be able to do this without alcohol. I couldn't think I could live without alcohol. I needed something. And so I read that part, and I got to the part where there are those two who cannot be rigorously honest. I went, oh my God, my whole life was a lie. If you knew me, you didn't know I had kids, because I would never say I had children. I couldn't stand the look in your face, knowing what kind of mother I had been and leaving my kids behind, what kind of mortal sin that was. So I was a liar. And so I thought, that's me. I'm not going to have this. But I had just enough hope to get past that. A, B, and C, God could and would if he were sought. I read that last line. I looked up, I put that book across my chest. I looked up at that God of my understanding in Playa del Rey, 412 Culver Boulevard, across from the Prince of Wales. Looked up at God of my understanding at that point, and I said, dear God, I'm not seeking, I'm begging. And you better show me, because I don't put, I'm from Missouri, well, Michigan, but I lived in Missouri. You got to show me state. And so the parts that had produced those children started moving around inside of me. They went back into place like the first time in 30 years, 22 years. And I thought, oh my God, I could see my stomach moving around. And I thought, oh my God, is this real? And I could feel it. And then my heart kind of heated over. I can't describe all the physical, but I knew that God was showing me he was there. I mean, I knew God was in the room with me, put it that way. They talk about that in the big book. They call it a burning bush variety of a spiritual experience. And that was the only kind that could have gotten me here. I finished that book. I read it for a month. I didn't call Jackie right away because I didn't think, I knew God was going to be able to do it. I didn't know if I could. I did not have a drink for a whole month. And I finally called Jackie and I told her, Jackie, guess what? And she said, what? I said, I'm 30 days sober. And she said, get that big book and your big white ass out here. And she still lived in that apartment in Playa del Rey, in Hermosa. And that's how my journey began. I came to you guys. I vomited all the stuff that I freely shared with you tonight that nobody had ever heard, including them, including Jackie and Jay Stinnett. I know some of you guys know him. He's kind of a guru out here. He lives in Arizona now, and Jackie passed away. Jackie went out and drank after 20-some years of sobriety. And guess what? I was the one that she trusted enough to call me and tell me that she was in the nut house to come and get her. Because that's the power that we have here, the power to save one another. She saved me, and I could reach back and bring her up. When we're in the prayer tonight for the alcoholic who still suffers, I want you to put a name in there, Mark. He's a guy that I brought into AA years ago. Brenda, another Playboy Bunny friend of mine, it's her son, Mark. And he stayed 11 years sober, and he's part Filipino. He married a Filipino girl, and he lives in the Philippines now. And he just can't get back to us. He just can't get back to us. I'm going to send him this tape tonight, and I hope he hears that we all pray for him when we pray for the alcoholic who still suffers. Okay, I'm out of time. My kids have all found forgiveness because I did that little bit of work here. I sent those letters. I said things like, if you only want to come and see me out of curiosity, I'm available to you today. If you've got heart problems or any kind of medicinal things, I'll come and show you who I am and what I have. I'd never been available to anybody. Now I'm going to be available to these kids who might be mass murderers. I don't know, And, my middle son was the first to call me. I have 9 beautiful grandchildren who've never, 37 years, it wasn't my dream to do this. I didn't come to get my children back. I was never going to darken their doorstep again. I had done enough damage in their life. But when you do the work here, guess what? You got to come clean. And it took effort. It was a lot of angst. I was worried and scared, but I knew God was there with me, and I was capable of writing that letter, capable of going back to school and getting an education, capable of changing my life, capable of getting a job, a career that made me the lady that I am today. You guys did that for me. My grandchildren, if I could show you those pictures, oh my God, they're so gorgeous. They look like the other grandmother's side of the family, really, but I like to pretend. Anyway, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Kelly, because for the first time in my life, I feel safely held. And I want to thank you all for that. Thank you so much.